In the halal food market, which is one of the fastest growing sectors on the entire planet, what really separates a business that's thriving from one that's just struggling? You'd probably guess it's all about profit or maybe being super efficient. But what if I told you the real key to success was something else entirely? Okay, let's get into it.
So let me ask you, what do you think is the number one thing that drives a food business's supply chain? Makes it all work smoothly. Is it making a ton of money? Having perfectly efficient operations? Maybe a really aggressive growth strategy? Well, those are the usual suspects, right? But a fascinating study found something completely different.
Just look at this. Researchers went in expecting to find that, yeah, things like financial performance or internal efficiency would be the key. But the data? The data told a totally different story. None of those things were the main drivers. Nope. The single most important factor, the one thing that actually predicted success, was customer trust. So how on earth did they figure that out?
Well, to get to the bottom of it, the researchers zoomed in on a really specific industry. And that brings us to our first section, the fried chicken puzzle, which takes place in Indonesia, a huge hub for the global halal market. They focused their study on 130 small and medium-sized fried chicken businesses. Now, this group is super important because these little guys are basically the backbone of the local food economy. They face just intense competition, which makes them the perfect test case for figuring out what really makes a business tick.
Now, to solve this puzzle, they knew they couldn't just look at the bank account. They needed a much broader tool, which leads us right into our next section, a new business scorecard. And that tool is something called the balanced scorecard. Honestly, the best way to think about it is like a full-on report card for a company. Instead of just grading it on one subject, like, money, it gives you the whole picture of its health from a bunch of different angles. And here are the 4 main subjects on that report card. First, you've got the financial stuff, profit, costs, the usual. Then there's the customer perspective. Are they happy? Are they loyal? Next is the internal business process, basically how well things are running behind the scenes. And finally, learning and growth. Are employees getting better? Is the tech up to date? The whole idea was to see which of these grades really matter the most. So, with this scorecard in hand, the researchers were all set for Section 3, putting halal to the test out there in the real world of Indonesian fried chicken.
So this right here is basically the study's game plan. They were testing how each of those 4 areas, financial, internal process, customer, and growth, all connected back to the big prize, a really strong supply chain. The question was, which of these paths would actually turn out to be a super highway to success and which were just dead ends? And that brings us to the moment of truth, the big reveal. The data started rolling in, and believe me, the results were incredibly clear.
Okay, let's break these numbers down real quick, no stats degree required. See that column called p-value? All you need to know is that a really, really low number there means the connection is solid. It's the real deal, not just random luck. And as you can see, only one of these paths has that super low number. It's the one connecting the customer directly to the supply chain, a total bullseye. And it all boils down to this single number, 0.496. That's the coefficient. It measures the raw strength of the connection, and it shows a direct, positive, and powerful impact from the customer perspective on the supply chain success. It was the only thing that really moved the needle. So let's just put that in plain English. For these businesses, the only thing that consistently led to better performance was how their customers felt about them. Trust in their halal promise, being satisfied with the chicken, and being loyal to the brand. That was it. That was the magic formula. But wait a minute, this raises a huge question, right? Why didn't the other stuff matter? I mean, why wouldn't making more money or having smoother operations automatically lead to success? Well, the answer is pretty fascinating, and it lies in the day-to-day reality for these small business owners. For these owners, the money side of things is a constant tightrope walk. As one of them put it, the cost of getting certified halal ingredients is high, but their profit margins are razor thin. One little slip-up, and they could actually lose money. That makes it almost impossible for any financial gains to create long-term, stable success. And it wasn't just the costs. The interviews they did revealed another huge problem: high staff turnover. Owners would spend time and money training their employees on all the proper halal processes, only to have them leave. Then they'd have to start all over again with someone new.
It made any kind of sustained improvement to their internal operations pretty much impossible.
So if finances are shaky and internal processes are a revolving door, what's left? It all points to our final section and a really powerful shift in how we should think about business. Trust is the real currency.
What this research really proves is that for these businesses, halal compliance isn't just some annoying rule or a box you have to check. It's a powerful strategic asset. It is the #1 tool they have to build the one thing that actually drives success: the absolute, unwavering trust of their customers. And we are not talking about a small niche market here. The global halal food market is projected to be worth over $3 trillion by 2028. So, understanding that trust is the central driver in a market that massive, that is a total game changer. So what's the big takeaway from all this? First, deep consumer trust can be way more valuable than short-term profit. Second, that halal certification isn't just a cost, it's an investment that makes you stand out from the crowd. And finally, and maybe most importantly, building a strong, resilient business really does start and end with listening to your customers. And that leaves us with one last question to chew on, and it applies to pretty much any business, not just fried chicken. In a world where people care more and more about what they buy, if trust really is the new currency, how are you earning it?